Oh, that's nice. Launched OBS and Discord recognized that I launched it? Okay.
How do I sound?
It's fine.
Oh, good. Just making sure I don't know where my headset went, so I'm just yelling at my laptop.
I don't think you need to yell. You sound just fine.
I don't think we're going to get too many more people. It's probably going to go ahead and get started because I don't want to waste too much time. So, are you good to record now, Darylyn? Cool. All right, so tonight's meeting, what we're going to be talking about is park health. I'm going to generally define what I think is the parameters around park health and what we were looking for and what we're going to strive for as individual parks to try to get there as part of our recruitment. After I speak to that, we're going to have Fira do a presentation on park officers, what it is they do. Then I'm going to present the events that parks should be running and how to incorporate people into those events. And at the end, we're going to have MacDeath talk about the new position DEIB for a brief moment as opposed to a full presentation tonight so that we can keep the meeting a little bit shorter. But to start off, I wanted to talk about park health. Before we get to recruiting and trying to get our numbers up, which is, of course, the interest of the reign, it's important that we kind of know what sort of actual things we're looking at for that park health. Um, the first thing being that you have all of your officer positions filled and that there is some form of interest in incoming officers for that park. Obviously, all parks need to have their officer positions filled in order to function. So one of the things looking at as a checkbox on that park health sheet is that all of the officers' positions are currently filled and that there is some form of interest in the future positions. Someone interested in potentially being the next monarch, regent, and champion as well as prime minister, and if your park's big enough, a GMR as well. Um, we want to make sure that there's a combinations of all of the game's interest in a park, not just one aspect, which means that not just the fighting is excelling, but also that there is an arts and sciences presence at the park, and a presence at the park willing to teach leadership and continuing those park on. Um, so looking at those factors, it's another checkbox. Do you currently have folks producing some form of content or continuing further the aspects of the game at your weekly park? Uh, Another aspect of park health is the engagement with our greater community or the kingdom engagement. Having members of your park at kingdom events, um, makes people known throughout the kingdom, so it of course creates more of that camaraderie, understanding who one another are, as well as when your park does exclusive events or tries to drive kingdom travel, it's easier to do so when people know who your people are. So engagement with the kingdom at a greater level does tend to help our local parks, which is the lifeblood of the game. Inclusion of our non-combatants and those not on the field. So making sure that people who are showing up to just be social, who are showing up to participate only in the arts and crafts because maybe they can't actually be on the field, making sure that there's something at park at least available or present so that those folks still feel welcome to come. And the last thing is actually a metric that we rate on, which is how many of our current players are actually citizen players. How many have buy-in and stake in the actual kingdom's outcomes, whether we change things with our rules, whether we are looking at electing new kingdom officers. It's how many of your players are currently considered kingdom active, and do they actually vote and engage with the kingdom? So for overall park health, that is the holistic picture we're looking at. Making sure that all the aspects of AmpGuard are met, making sure that we have people interested in continue driving those activities forward, and making sure we're including all the members of our community, since we are a community, not just a game. Questions, thoughts, comments? All right. One of the things that I plan on doing with those metrics, with those checkboxes, so to speak, is I will create a sheet to essentially kind of get a glance over where our parks are at and where we need to work on, and that'll become our focus for the next few weeks of trying to get those things together. I think from there, I'm okay to step down. Fira, are you ready?
Sure thing.
All right, then I'll give the floor to you.
Like he was saying, parks are the backbone of the kingdom. Without the parks, there would be no kingdom. Well, prime ministers are the backbone of the parks. They're responsible for tracking almost everything, logistically, financially, ridiculously, for their parks and their players. They track for all players, not just citizen players, but also just your resident players as well. Now, the Kapora lists a whole bunch of stuff as their duties, maintaining records and, Kapora tests, all of that. Now, what the Kapora lists is specifically for the kingdom prime minister, but the local prime ministers work almost exactly the same, just at a different level. The Kapora is, like I said, it lines out the duties for all the different officers in the kingdom. Now, the parks operate on a slightly smaller scale. So a park PM is responsible for things like creating the audit that is due at Crown Tourney every reign, and they send that audit to the Kingdom PM. The Kingdom PM compiles all that and then sends it to the COM and to the BOD. So they do the same thing, just at a different level. And that works the same way for almost all of the officers listed in the Kapora. It's a really important document, and if players haven't seen it, it would be a good idea to maybe have a copy of that at park and have that discussion with new players so that they know where to find it, which is either by request from the Kingdom PM if you can't find it. Otherwise, it's in the file section on the Dagore or on the Dagore Facebook page. It's in the file section. That gets updated fairly frequently. So a couple things about the other officers. Sorry, I lost track of where I was in my notes. Park monarchs, which, sheriff, baronet, all of those things, are responsible for guiding the park. They're responsible for recruiting and retention, running the all things, creating the park calendar, and with the help of the PM and the GMR, handling disciplinary actions. And basically their job is to make sure everybody else is also doing their job. Those two officers are required for every level of park in our kingdom. So all the way down to a shire, shire is required to have both of those officers. It's helpful, and we've noticed a trend that even shires that fill all 4 positions tend to be doing better. We encourage parks to have that, but it is not strictly required per our Capora. You do have to have a prime minister and a monarch. The other positions that are required at higher levels, but optional for the shire level, is the regent, who's responsible for arts and sciences and fostering those within their park, whether that be craft days, classes, or just running the required tournaments. That is their realm. Culturally, the regent is also responsible for ensuring that the feast is there for their respective parks. Now, that is not codified anywhere. That is just a cultural thing that has carried over from before that was removed. Who knows how long ago that was taken out, but a long time ago. It's been gone a while. The champion is responsible for running the games, designing the games, and working with the kingdom champion if there's kingdom games that need to be ran as well, because occasionally we have these lovely themed reigns, of which FinnTroll has been in charge of a couple of, where the role play and things trickles down to the kingdom or to the parks, and those players get to interact with that at their home park as well as online and at events. Now, the champion and the GMR kind of jointly responsible for making sure that the weapons are safe on the field. Either or both can do weapons checks, and normally they do that together. If you have them both, they work together to make sure that the safety of the weapons on the field and that there are enough reeves. The GMR, Guildmaster of Reeves, is responsible for making sure that there are enough reeves on the field and that they are doing their job. And that is something that's very, very important, because it's all well and good to have reeves on the field, but if the reeve is too timid or is afraid to tell somebody that they're doing something wrong or that they are doing something unsafe, then the GMR is responsible for either coaching that reeve to be better at this, or removing dangerous situations. That's their job. When a park has all of these officers filled and everybody's on the same page and working together, it makes for fantastic parks. Everybody has a good time. There's something there for everybody, and we find way more vested players and solid leadership with parks that have all of these officers. Again, refer to the Capora if you have questions about whether or not an officer is required at your level of park. But I encourage you to try and fill those positions even if they're not required, because parks that are missing things, missing aspects of the game, really struggle to stay open, honestly. We've seen lots of parks struggle and fail because they were not as inclusive with what they offer to the players. Does anybody have questions?
I have one. I'm pouring through the Capora. We don't have a specific section that dictates the responsibility of officers at the park level, do we? I can't seem to find it.
No, there's a section that says that though this pertains to kingdom officers, park officers are expected to act in the same manner or something like that. I'll see if I can find it for you.
All right. Well, if we have no further questions, I'm going to move into the next topic, which is the presentation on events that the park should be running and how to incorporate people into those events. So one of the things is every 6 months, 4 events are ran. That's the responsibility of the monarchy in those 6 months. The 4 events are the coronation / in reign, so the start of that person's reign and the end of the previous monarch, regent, and champion's reign. The mid reign, which is the halfway point, which will replace the prime minister and GMR in elections, and that is the halfway for the 3 champion, king, monarch, and regent. And then there are the 2 tournaments, the first being Weapon Master, Dragon Master, and the second being what we now call the Crown Tournament, that was formerly a qualifications tournament. Those 4 events have to be run both at the park level in those 6 months, and when the kingdom has its 6 months, we also run them at the kingdom level. For a park to do them, those responsibilities lay on the park. So usually the park monarchy handles all of the events. The champion is the one who usually organizes the tournaments. The regent, well, the fighting tournaments. The regent organizes the A&S competitions and showcases, and the monarch monitors overall. Usually the monarch is the one that defines the themes, but people do come at this as teams sometimes with an idea that they've come up with together. Kingdom level, if you're looking to run an event, it is a little different. Since at the park level, it's essentially just up to the leadership group, and park events sometimes are not planned out as far in advance. It's pretty easy for a park to handle it with their. You have your localized budget, your local resources to do those events. With a kingdom event, we need a little bit more forewarning, more time, especially to find sites large enough to host larger groups, especially if we want amenities. So for a kingdom level event, we actually have a process that's posted to the Kingdom of Dagore page. It's up in our pin posts, and it talks through the entire event bid process. Kingdom events are bid. Those bids wind up going to our board of directors first to make sure that the financials and everything line up, and then the board approves those events. Generally speaking, in the past, if an event was not bid or there was no one that put up for an event, then the monarchy would run that event. The monarchy is supposed to make the choices for those events as well. We've kind of changed that a little bit in TD. If a monarchy wants to run their own event, there isn't a problem with that. They just need to bid it the same way that everybody else is trying to bid events so that we have it ahead of time to make sure we have our resources and our site rented. A lot of places tend to get booked out early these days. If you're interested in that entire process, as I said, there's a video that actually walks through it attached to the form where you would put in your base information to get a meeting with the board of directors. That form is to get some initial information from you, but really after you would submit that form, you'll wind up getting invited to the next board of directors meeting to present your bid, and we would probably ask you more questions, more probing things to make sure that we have a complete picture of that bid. That about sums that up. Are there questions for this particular section?
I've got a question. So I guess I'm a little bit confused. I've always viewed Crown Tourney as the same as Weapon Master Dragon Master and Weapon Master Dragon Master as one thing. Can I get a little more clarification on at the park level? Are we supposed to be doing what amounts to Weapon Master Dragon Masters in a 6 month reign?
Yeah. You're supposed to have a crown tournament and a Dragon Master Weapon Master.
What's the difference?
Truthfully, the difference is up to your officers if they want to make them different. Most of the time, functionally, there is no difference. They're 2 big tournaments, usually run the same way. We just give different titles for each one. I think, what do we call it? Weapon Master, and it might have been War Master, or might have just been Crown Champion. I don't recall. But there's a title for each one of the tournaments. The reason is previously one of them was actually qualifications. You had to participate in it in order to qualify for officers. But we realized that there wasn't a need to put additional steps for a person in order to step into a voluntary role. We didn't want to force someone to compete in order to be a kingdom officer. So instead of requiring quals, we also did not want to reduce the number of opportunities that both fighters and artisans had to show off their skills. So we kept the tournament, we just no longer call it qualifications.
So at the park level, we are still required to run both tournaments?
I believe you're still supposed to run all 4 events.
Yes. The cultural event for Crown Tournament, the title for the cultural event is Crown Artisan, and the title for the War Skill event is War Master.
That's right. But yes, all 4 events are supposed to be taking place at the park.
Okay.
Do we have parks that miss them? Oh yeah, it happens all the time. Occasionally, an event gets overlooked, it gets slipped on, or something happens where it had to get canceled because of bad weather.
I don't think my
Tournaments.
park necessarily wants two tournament days. They would like more battle games, but I understand.
Fair.
It's an opportunity to draw in players from other parks as well. When you create these events and you host them at your park, you can advertise them to other parks in the area, or other parks in the kingdom, to the kingdom page itself, so that you get more travel from other areas in the kingdom, and it increases your attendance.
Sorry, I muted myself like 3 different ways. Yeah, no, that answers my question. I appreciate it.
Essentially, you have 26 weeks. You have 26 weekends that you're playing in a 6-month reign. 4 of them are usually occupied by events, which would be 2 of them being occupied by tournaments. Though you're not wrong. There has been times where people don't run both, but we are supposed to be running all of them. Any further questions about the 4 events? Okay. The last person to speak then will be MacDeath, talking about the DEIB position.
Hello, hello, hello. Can everyone hear me okay? Am I coming through clear?
Yep, can hear you fine.
All right, so good evening, everyone. I'll make this as quick and informative as I can. So I'm here talking about the new position of the DEIBs. So many are probably wondering what in the world that is. So I'm going to go ahead and explain what it is. So it was originally called the Diversity and Inclusion position, but just as FinnTroll was just talking about, we're really focusing on the park health, and we're really focusing on building everything as a community. As I go through the brief explanation of what each of it is, it was kind of necessary to add on the belonging, because we are, as a community, we are all needed to be able to promote this park health. So diversity, it's really all the multiple identities that really make up our parks and as us as a kingdom. Equity is constantly recognizing all the fairness and the distribution of all of us together. Inclusion, it's all of us here. It's the thoughts and ideas of our identities and perspectives of all of the individuals that are welcome. And lastly, the addition of belonging. It's an organization where the full potential of the individual is engaged. So, as we had heard today, is making sure that everyone is included, really recognizing our arts, and just making sure that no one is really left beside. So, this new position is really going to have a lot of different facets into it. Some examples of what the position will do is it's going to be serving as a collaborative leader who's going to implement the strategies, the DEIB strategies of all the visions of all the players of the Kingdom of Dagore. So I'm going to be listening to a lot of you about how we can make sure that those individuals that are sitting on the outside, if they're not feeling comfortable wanting to play a battle game, or they're not wanting to ditch, and they are the arts and science people, to figure out what we can do to make sure that we can involve them. Working on doing organizational new diversity initiatives, outreach objectives, and strategies for recruitment. Being able to do like internal surveys, focusing on facilitation groups, updating documentation to make things more inclusive while doing the culture. We all come from different cultures. And also making sure feedback for events and recruitments within Dagore. So if there is something maybe you were like, I had some questions about the non-men's tournament, or I really had questions about this Dragon Master, or this, war skill events. That's where it will go, and just revising and updating our descriptions in the Capora. So, and reactivating the DEIB website. And that's just a little bit brief about it. We'll be able to go more into detail, but main goal is it's late, and we just want to keep it as short as possible. So that's all that I have.
Thanks, Lydia. All right. So we will have a little bit more coming from that position likely in future meetings, especially since me and Lydia will get a little more time to talk and work on those things together. Any questions? If not, we're going to open the floor just to open discussion for a little while. All right. It's real quiet, so I'm going to guess not so much.
Anybody
Well,
else who was looking for the answer to the question that Wayland asked, I dropped um, the the verbiage from the Kapora into the general chat.
for the folks that are here, because I see that we have quite a few of the leads in here, I am preparing a survey right now. I'm trying to get together actual meaningful data collection points on how and what brought everyone that's here into AmpGuard. I think it'll give us at least a view of current state, what most of us are here from, and hopefully give us a little direction on where to go maybe with our recruitment efforts in the future. Also, seeing that you're in here, Deimos, there was something you mentioned to me at NRAIN that you wanted to talk about, and I can't remember what it was, but I was really excited about it, and now I need your help remembering.
Yeah, excuse me. That's kind of, I talked with Coupe, Loxus. I'm waiting on MHOG and some others, but I wanted to see people that have been around for a long time to help kind of beef up the document. But it was supposed to be more of a comprehensive tool for like things that you can do at the kingdom level and the park level to help not only get retention but recruit. And I also think like your data survey seems to be something that's coming up more and more as people don't quite know where people are coming from. So I think having that information will be very useful to actually narrow that down to be more useful.
Excellent. Well, let me shoot you a copy of that survey in its current state. It's not done. If you have suggestions, because I'm still kind of putting this one together. My personal time has been eaten up a little bit lately, so. Anyone else? Open floor. I'm gonna.
I got something. FinnTroll, you were talking about the recruitment, park health, paperwork as something you want to get started. What's the how quick of a feedback? I'm trying to compare it to the seasonal audits that we'd have to do that a park would have
No,
to do.
this is not going to be something that a park is forced to do. This isn't like an audit or a requirement. This is essentially a checklist I'm making of if you're interested in your park and your park's health, you should look down this checklist and make sure that your park is doing these things. If we know that there's a park that is struggling in one of these areas, we need to start focusing on how we can help that park fix it. Because until our parks do have a solid foundation, because some of ours are very small, it's very hard to recruit when you do not have a solid foundation to recruit to. If people are unsure about the future, if people don't know, essentially, if you don't have an officer that's going to continue the park will eventually fizzle and die. If you don't have an ANS presence, then you're never going to recruit the people who do those sorts of things, which is what will holistically complete a park. So it's more of a, hey, here's a checklist of what we're looking for out of a healthy park. Is your park healthy if you look at these things right now, or is there work that needs to be done before we can really focus on bringing new people into the park?
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. All right, thank you.
Absolutely. I am doing my absolute best right now to basically come at this as if though it is a project at work. Exactly the way that one of the big four audit and accounting firms runs a project is how I'm intending to actually try to do this. We're in the data collection phase right now. I have to get more information before I can actually build out a plan to try to grow. Realistically, though, I think if we have a better understanding of where all of us came from and how we were initially recruited, I think we can target those areas more and try to lean into that. There may be also some opportunity for looking at methods that we haven't recruited before using that same information. I see a whole bunch of mics blinking on and off, so.
I had a question. So,
Sure.
when we were doing entering in Hallsville, I met this lovely lady for H4 or 4H. I can't remember which way it is. But she was mentioning a bunch of like her teenagers, her older teenagers, and some of the youth there wanting to be more physical, is there going to be a way for us to start kind of incorporating younger, like the younger players? Like, does that mean we need to do? I guess my question is do we want to cultivate that relationship with another organization? Since I have her contact information, or do we just want to naturally see what happens with that, like bringing in younger kids in their mid-teens, early like or late teens to help grow like attendance and just players, new players?
If a player is going to be on the field, per our rules of play, per the way AmpGuard run, they're supposed to be 14. There is occasionally, of course, exceptions made, usually in the case of an older family member being an AmpGuarder. I
Right.
will leave it up to the individual parks, champions, and monarchies on what they would like to do at their local park, because that's not really my business if your local park is okay with younger folks being on the field. I personally do not like having anyone under 14 on my fields. Just for safety's sake, for maturity's sake,
Oh
I
no,
prefer to keep it.
none of these kids are below 14. These kids are like 15, 16, 17.
Well, then, no, you're
They're
talking about probably our best target demographic. So
okay.
yes, we would try to
Cultivated.
cultivate any sort of relationship that might bring us additional members. You don't have to attach to another org, but if you know members of that organization and you participate or communicate with them, there's no reason why you couldn't reach out to more members of that organization.
Okay.
Networking is, of course, always okay. I'm never going to tell you don't network.
Do a
All
demo
right. I
for
would
them.
do a
Yeah, a
demo.
demo would be good to organize. If this was down, you said that this was the 4-H people that were down uh,
Uh, yeah.
SRF's territory, correct?
Yes. Oh no.
Okay.
They were in Hallsville, so
Hallsville. No, that's our territory. Okay.
yeah, that's our
Oh, you're
territory.
talking about the, I know who you're talking about. The lady who was standing there collecting the donations for Barb.
Yeah, she was. So she stayed for a long time and just kind of talked to me about a like her stuff, and then she asked a whole bunch of questions about AmpGuard and how to get like the older
Yeah.
teams
You,
into AmpGuard. So that's why I was like, I don't know how to really network that properly, just because I'm not on the field. So I wanted to like see if like
I would
we're gonna come up with.
speak. I would speak to our current monarchy, Brett and them, and have them actually talk to her. If
Okay.
they want a demo, then that's something the monarchy of the local park should be taking care of.
Okay. So that
And
was my question.
excellent. Gonna stay for just a few more moments to see if anybody else has comments. All right. I appreciate everybody coming this evening. I hope you got something out of it. As I said, I'll try to get that checklist together so that it can come out and you can just kind of review about park health. We're going to be working on actual recruitment content. That's the survey. I will try my damnedest to get it done. I'm working on it this week. I'll pass a few people the link if you're interested in kind of taking a look at what I'm doing. Otherwise, good night, folks. I'm taking off.